Districts were redrawn to be within the 5%, that's plus or minus 2.5% population deviation standard that was set by this committee in our initial rules. The percentage of deviations from districts range from minus 1.91% to plus 1.86%. The overall range is 3.77%, which is significantly lower than we allow in our rules. The proposed House plan is more compact than the current House plan, scoring higher according to several compactness measurements. The three African-American majority-minority districts, those are House Districts 97, 99, and 73, and one Hispanic majority-minority district were retained. The Hispanic majority-minority district is House District 89. Where possible, consideration was given to communities of interest, to preserving communities of interest. The House plan tries to make small towns whole by following municipal boundaries and organize districts in a more meaningful manner with regards to rural, urban, and suburban areas. In addition, where possible, the plan takes into consideration school district boundaries and uses main roads, rivers, and highways and other physical features for district boundaries. Population and public input were important when organizing districts. When there's overwhelming public comment for Elk City to no longer be split between districts, we prioritize doing so. Elk City and Beckham County is now whole and within House District 55, which remains in rural southwestern Oklahoma district. Only one district has all new constituents, and that's going to be House District 36, which was relocated to eastern Oklahoma County and is comprised of the cities of Luther, Jones, Harrah, Choctaw, and the northwestern corner of Cleveland County. We created this district to give eastern Oklahoma County more cohesive representation. This was directly in response to the comments that were made at the first town hall meeting in Oklahoma City back in December. The House plan does not pair any incumbents that are eligible for re-election and did not take into consideration any voter registration data, voting history, etc. That said, at the end of the day, the decision on whether incumbents will continue to serve will be made by the voters, not the drawing of district lines. I want to thank everybody for being here. I think that you will see that this process has been very open and transparent, and these districts truly belong to the people of Oklahoma, and their input was taken into consideration, and we're happy to do that, and it's been a great process. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Lonnie Paxton, Chairman of the Senate Redistricting Committee.
Thank you all for being here. First of all, I want to thank the members of the Senate and House redistricting staffs that made all this stuff possible. And I think, beyond being the first time and the most transparent in the history of the state, we are also probably the most we've worked together with both chambers working together. Representative Martinez and I, we've coordinated everything that we've done to make sure that the transparency was on both sides of the rotunda, and that we worked together to make sure we made this process work well for everybody. And so with that, and I know Representative Martinez has already gone over a lot of the points that got us to here. Let me go over a little bit about the Senate districts and kind of what we expect to see with that. So currently, it's approximately 78,000 people is the current Senate districts and some change. The new Senate district should be around 81,935 people. We also had the same rules in the Senate rules with the 2.5% either way on the deviation. We will average about 3.84, which is below the 5% deviation that was approved by the committees. Senate District 48 is 1.97% over deviation. Senate 23 is 1.87% below deviation. So that would be the extremes on both sides. One primary thing in our map is Senate District 18, which is southeast of Tulsa, will be moved into the Oklahoma City metro area. That is to accommodate for the incredible amount of growth that's happened in the Canadian and Oklahoma County areas. So that district will be moving over into that area. When it comes to the overall compaction, we have right now the current map has 51 counties in the state of Oklahoma. 51 of the 71 are made whole. The new map we have will have 54 of the counties will be contained within the Senate district and not split up. Current map has 10 counties that split 3 or more times between Senate districts. The new map only has 6 counties that are split 3 or more times. Those counties are Oklahoma, Tulsa, Canadian, Cleveland, Wagner, and Cherokee counties. The largest district we have is Senate District 27, which is in the northwest part of the state. The perimeter of that Senate district is 765 miles. Our smallest district is Senate District 30, which is in the Oklahoma City metro area. The perimeter of that district is only 23.2 miles. I think that is kind of probably the major parts of our map. Once again, we also took all the community feedback. For example, we heard from, I think, 6 of the 9 maps that were submitted to the Senate by the public had Norman as a centric district, which means just the city of Norman would be a Senate district. We have adopted those recommendations, and so Senator Bourne, I believe that's Senate District 16, Senate District 616 will contain the city of Norman. And so that's the kind of stuff the input that we had received from throughout the state. We received input from Lawton. Lawton liked the idea. They're a split community now with 2 different senators. They like that to have more representation at the Capitol. So that's some of the comments that we received from those areas. So we received comments throughout the state, throughout the processes, and all the town halls that we have done. So with that, let me kind of go a little bit more into kind of where we go from here. So today, of course, we're having the press conference where these maps are being revealed to you all, as well as all the state senators and state representatives. Next week, we will be having committee meetings in both the House and the Senate. That's where Representative Martinez and I will present these maps to our respective committees. If we get an affirmative vote of those committees, then the following week, we'll take it to the floor. And so we treat this just like a regular House or a Senate bill. We hear them in our chambers, and it goes to the opposite chambers. If all those are affirmatively voted on, then it goes to the governor for a signature. If all that is successful, we push on into the summer. We will not be doing any congressional districts until we get the actual ACS data in, the actual numbers that we will be provided by the Census Bureau. We'll be doing 5 more town halls throughout the summer, 1 in each congressional district, in order to get the input for what people want to see in those when the congressional maps come out. So we will, at some point in the fall, we're thinking somewhere in October, probably have the special session in order to adopt the congressional maps. And then once we have that final data, we'll also be able to make any adjustments to the legislative maps if we need to. Hopefully we can get them all within those parameters, but it's possible when the final numbers come in that we might have to make adjustments. So with that, Representative Martinez, I guess we can take questions if you all have any.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the most surprising thing to you gentlemen in this process? So you mentioned Elk City, you mentioned Norman, you mentioned Lawton as some feedback. Was there any thought you had going in that when you came out of all this, you changed your mind on the way you'd go?
Just one thing I thought was interesting, it depends on where you were in the state. For example, I mentioned Lawton liked the idea of having 2 separate senators representing their district, so their town would be split. Some communities were very hard set on not having that. So it just depends on what the community leaders, I think it probably has to do with their interactions with their legislators. If they like having 2 there, or if they feel like they have more influence if they just have 1. So that was surprising to me that wasn't a uniform feeling around the state. It depends on the community that you're in.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I'll tell you one thing that was amazing to me, and I was impressed. I guess I want to say surprised as much as it was just reconfirmed how much faith I have in Oklahomans, that Oklahomans really adopted this process and made it their own. The public got very engaged, brought maps, very well thought out maps. We've had some great conversations with people that have brought up wonderful points about districts in which they live and what's important to them. And those ideas have been incorporated to our maps. So I think for me, it's just a testament to Oklahomans and their willingness to share great ideas with the legislature and make sure that this process really belongs to them. And it is something that I'm excited to say that this is truly a map that belongs to the people of Oklahoma, and absolutely happy to present that today.
There are concerns heading into this that the legislature that's Republican controlled was going to gerrymander districts. Do you guys think you gerrymandered any districts? Was that a thought that went into creating these maps?
Sure. So thanks for the question. So I don't think that there would be any issue or any place where somebody could say that something was done for political purposes. As mentioned before, we didn't have any political data at any of the data that we used to draw these districts for that very reason. The reason was this was about protecting community of interest, making districts that were fair, seemed to make sense to the public without taking into consideration any political data. That being said, I do believe that both parties were equally consulted and had chances to visit about this process. So I'm very confident that this was done in the most fair and transparent way in state history, quite frankly, and honestly, as transparent as possible.
So kind of on the same answer, we listened to everybody. It was absolutely everybody was involved in this. Going into this, my question to the minority party was make sure that we're doing everything we can do to be open, transparent, hear your concerns, and they were part of every part of this. So this is a committee that has a member of the minority party as one of the vice chairs, and they participated in it. It wasn't just a check the box thing. They were engaged. They when they needed to go to the Senate redistricting office to look at how the maps were transforming and to get their input. They were always welcome, always invited, and so the process. So I can look at our maps, and if you want to look at it from the actual statistics in there, our map just visually looks better, and our compaction scores look better compared to 2010. And I think we've moved in the right direction on those things. And I don't think that the allegation of gerrymandering can be used with us, and I don't think the House is either. I think the thing is we took public input, we took legislative input to try to make the process as open as possible, but also to get the maps to where it represented what the people were wanting.
Did you use any of the submissions from last week's committee meeting to change the maps, any from this last week?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think it's interesting to note that the map submission deadline was April 4th. So we had those maps starting April 4th. When they were submitted, we immediately started looking through those, dissecting those maps, seeing what was in there. And up until last night at, I think, midnight was the latest I heard. I think both redistricting staffs were still making tweaks and changes. So absolutely, those conversations that we had, I think you'll see a lot of areas that look a lot like some of the maps that were submitted. There were some really excellent ideas that worked out, and we're happy to have that process. But I also want to note that there was an entire process that just went beyond map submission. There were town halls where we received a lot of information via public comment. We've had emails throughout this entire process. In the House, every single member of the House of Representatives serves on one of the subcommittees, so constituents are contacting their respective representative the whole entire time. So there's been an overwhelming amount of public input that has been put into these maps from beginning to end, and I think that is very evident in the product that we have here today.
And so to tag off that, we started the public meetings were coordinated between the House and the Senate so we could use our 20 public meetings to cover as much as the state as we could, and that started back in December. So the map submission process was actually kind of at the tail end of the actual submissions we were getting from the public. But like I said, I know our staff is up here to almost midnight and tweaking the final stuff. So we were looking at changes and, as we round this final corner. So yes, all that was taken into consideration.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the Oklahoma City metro area is gaining one Senate district. Are we gaining any additional House districts?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So I mentioned House District 36. That's currently under the current map in Osage County, kind of that direction. That 36 is moving into eastern Oklahoma County.
Clarify on that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So Representative Sean Roberts represents that district currently, so he will no longer live in District 36.
That's correct. Representative Sean Roberts was term limited, so he's not eligible to run for re-election due to term limits, but that is correct. He will not live in District 36 any longer. There has been this massive shift in population to urban and suburban areas from rural Oklahoma. So we had to make up for that to pick up that population where needed. And just to remind you, the reason why eastern Oklahoma County was chosen for District 36, overwhelming public comment at the Oklahoma City town halls. It was made very clear that Jones, Luther, Harrah, Choctaw, they really felt like they would be better represented if they had somebody that understood the needs of eastern Oklahoma County. Therefore, it made the most sense to put District 36 there, and we're happy to listen to that public comment provided by those people in eastern Oklahoma County.
I guess I'm a little surprised that if the Oklahoma City Metro has room for a whole new Senate district,
Yeah.
that there wouldn't be room for more House districts, right?
So what you'll see is, I think it's a kind of a point that is arguable. You'll see the shrinking of House districts that start to center around population centers. So for example, you had some seats before that were suburban, urban / rural, because they had to climb into rural areas to pick up population, you won't see as much of that. Instead, those seats became more compact, and they are truly more urban or suburban type seats now compared to a blended urban, suburban, rural type seat.
Sounds like those, I know that you didn't take party politics into this, but it sounds like those seats would then thus be less competitive because, you know, we tend to think that Democrats live in urban areas and Republicans live in rural areas.
I think that's an oversimplification, quite frankly. I mean, we didn't use that data, but I don't see that being an issue, quite frankly. It's actually keeping community of interest in a better position. For example, I say it's really hard to imagine a representative that's living in one side of Oklahoma City really understanding the needs of a rural community the way that they would probably like. A lot of the public input did surround that, where rural needs and urban and suburban needs are often different. So I think you'll see that reflected in the districts.
Well, I put the legislative maps out long before the congressional. And what did you guys use to determine population with the Census Bureau not being out yet?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Why put the legislative districts out before the congressional districts?
Okay.
What data are you guys basing your population estimates off of, given that the census data is not back yet?
Yeah, so the Oklahoma Constitution says that we need to adopt the legislative districts by the end of this legislative session. So we're following our Constitution by using the best data that has been provided to us. The best data available is the ACS estimate data. So that's the best data that we have to use to satisfy our constitutional requirements. This Constitution does not require us to have the congressional districts drawn at this same time. So those can be pushed back into the fall when we get the actual data in. We're allowed by our Constitution to have a deviation, which we've adopted as the 5% deviation, 2.5% either way. When it comes to the congressional districts, those have to be down to the person, so we really can't use the estimates. So that's why we use this, you know, the data is the best that we have. The U.S. statutes say that we're supposed to have this data provided to us by April 1st. You know, they have failed to provide that data, and that's what's pushed this onto the system that this is probably the best non-litigation method that we can go by having adopt this right now, then we'll come back in the fall, and if we need to make adjustments based on the actual data, we can still do that. But that's why the congressional stuff is being pushed back towards the fall, and we're adopting these maps right here today.
Can I just clarify one thing on that? So we talk about ACS data. Let's keep in mind that is Census Bureau data. That is provided by the U.S. Census Bureau, and that is the most up-to-date, most accurate, most current data that is provided to states. Sure, we'd love to have the census data, but the Census Bureau is currently violating federal law and has not provided that data. So as the Oklahoma legislature, we have to do what's required of us by our Constitution and do what's right by the people of Oklahoma and use the most current, most accurate Census Bureau data, which is the ACS 2015 through 2019 data.
Of a situation where you drew two incumbents together into a district. Besides Representative Roberts, he's term limited. Do you know of any situation, or aware of any situation where you've drawn somebody out of the district that they currently represent who's not term limited?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't think of an instance within the House map either.
Somebody was asking me if y'all are going to put the maps on Dave's redistricting, or if it's just going to be like the PDF on the Senate and House website.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. It won't be in Dave's redistricting specifically. It will be on the website. I believe there's a viewer, and it makes the map interactive. So there are some features that you can use interactive-wise. Dave's redistricting, the reason for that is in the public map submission, we wanted to offer a free service so it's accessible to any Oklahoman, and that was one of the services that offered a product that was free and easily accessible. So it won't be uploaded into Dave's. Rather, there'll be an interactive map on both redistricting websites.
Will the data be downloadable for anyone else to analyze too?
That's honestly, that's a better question for IT.
Almost every data point you're going to need. If somebody reaches out to the redistricting office and wants something specific, they just have to ask for it.
Yeah.
Like the RTIS file or something similar to that? Would that be
Depending on
provided?
what they would have to ask for what they want.
You know, proactively put it.
But any data that 99.9% of people are going to need is on the district viewer. Statistics, demographics, population, boundaries. You can view all the way down to May Avenue, whatever you want the boundary to be. You can see it on the district viewer.
Was it just luck that no incumbent got redistricted out of their current district? Because you said you didn't take politics, and it seems very unlikely that would happen just by dumb luck.
So I want to say it was dumb luck. I mean, I think the rules that we presented and adopted as committees early on in the process was clear that we weren't pairing incumbents together. We're under the belief that the people of Oklahoma should decide not to send somebody back to the Capitol building, not somebody drawing district lines. So everybody that is here has been duly elected by the people of Oklahoma, and the people of Oklahoma should have say in when that person's time in this legislature should end. Therefore, we wanted to keep that in the hands of the voters.
So that was a factor in how you drew, in both chambers, and how you drew your lines, who the incumbent was and where they lived?
Yes, that was, we'd take into consideration all sorts of factors, and that is one of them. One of the maps that was submitted to us in the public submission process, actually, that was one of the key points that individual started with. And I thought he made a great statement when it was kind of asked why he did. He said, what's the community of interest? Those voters know that legislator, the legislators know those voters, and so it's drawn in that way. So if we pair two people together, then we are telling the people in that district, you can only have one of them. It also can create a situation where one of those incumbents is going to be better positioned to win a race than the other one. So it kind of disenfranchises the voters when we actually pair those legislators together. So districts are drawn in a way so that voters, their choices are respected. And if they want to eliminate somebody who is representing them, they do it through the ballot box, not through a committee at the state capitol. So that was how that was taken into effect.
Senator Paxton, I heard you say on the floor that Senate redistricting meets next Wednesday. Does House redistricting also meet next Wednesday to take up these maps?
I believe that's what the schedule allows. I know the goal is to allow 7 days at least for the public to be able to analyze this data, interact with the maps, ask questions, have their concerns, so there's truly a transparent process to continue this discussion.
If they have concerns, should they just email the general sort of redistricting inboxes for the House and the Senate, or contact their legislators? What's the best way?
Any of the above. We do have the respective redistricting email addresses, which work out great. It'll probably get the answer a lot quicker. If you do have a relationship with your representative, feel free to contact them, and we will get the information to you ASAP. Or if you have concerns, we'd love to hear them.
Back in October, I know you come back and do the congressional districts. If you come back and the final census data differs in some significant way from the ACS data, do you have the ability to revise the legislative districts if you needed to?
Yes, we will, if that's necessary, we will be able to do that. We like in our rules, we have our deviation at 5%, which is 2.5%. Either way, if the actual data comes in and pushes us outside that deviation, then by rules, we'll have to come in there and make adjustments to those districts.
Did you make any effort to make sure the rural voters have a say? Because I know a lot of rural voters are starting to feel like they're disenfranchised a little bit with the shift to the urban population centers.
That's part of the process when going out to areas. You know, I am a rural voter, and so I respect that. But you know, like I said, this is not an urban versus rural thing. This is a numbers thing, and it's just where the population ends up. I think the last number I saw, you look at the Canadian, Oklahoma, Cleveland County areas. That area grew about by 140,000 people over the last 10 years. Senate districts around 83,000. That tells you that area is going to need more representation, because it goes back to the one person, one vote, equal representation up here. You know, that's how we have to do it. So it is a matter. So my comments to my colleagues, say in Western Oklahoma or rural Eastern Oklahoma, is let's start today on working to do things to increase our populations in the future, so that the 2030 census will be more reflective of those areas.
This is probably a little hypothetical, but I mean, how far away was Oklahoma from adding another congressional district?
Keith, I'm going to jump, because I think that was discussed. Yeah.
I can get you the exact numbers. There's numerous studies out there, but it's considerable.
Any questions?
Dave Rader has a map. What is this? Can we see it?
It's what's on,
I'm sorry.
what's available online.
Thank you.
Redistricting
Sorry.
staff can stick around. I know the legislators got to go, probably get back to the floor and resume voting, but staff's here, and obviously we can answer questions, so thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very much.
Hey, thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks a lot.
How are you? Can you get that from Senator Reagan?
Telling you, Aaron.